This year marks the continuation of a tradition started many years ago as we merged the Cuba and Rushford chapters of the National Honor Society into one. It is an honor to be representing this year's established members as we introduce and welcome the 21 new members to the NHS. Every year, new members for the NHS are selected by the faculty to become part of this tradition. Students selected are unique. They have achieved a cumulative average of 90% or higher and have demonstrated strong qualities in the areas of scholarship, character, service, and leadership. These qualities are rated by the teachers, and each candidate submits an extended response in the application process to be evaluated. The members who will be inducted today have passed through this rigorous process and stand before you understanding both the prestige and responsibility of this honor. We would like to take a moment to review each of these qualities. Scholarship is meant as a term that describes academic learning or achievement. Service is an obligation that we should all share in hopes of making our school, community, country, and world a better place in which to live. Character is shown by the students who are being inducted today through their dedication and effort they demonstrate in all areas of their high school endeavors. Leadership is defined as the position or guidance of a leader. All of the inductees have shown leadership qualities in one form or another. Now, each presenter, chosen by the inductee, will introduce each new member.
Hello, my name is Miss Williams, and I have the privilege of introducing Rachel Deich for induction into the Cuba Rushford chapter of the National Honor Society. Although I only met Rachel at the beginning of this school year, it did not take long for me to recognize the emphasis that Rachel places on her academics. Rachel strives to be the best learner she can each and every day. She always contributes to class, and her work is always done to a high standard and submitted early. Rachel also participates in a variety of extracurricular activities, but is still able to manage her workload and continue to succeed in all of her classes. Recently, Rachel has told me that she's thinking of going into the medical field. With Rachel's commitment to scholarship and service, I believe that she will be extremely successful in this endeavor, or in any endeavor for that matter. It's my honor to present Rachel for induction.
Hi, my name's Joe Franzen, and today I have the privilege to introduce Alyssa Tyler. Alyssa is quiet until she isn't. I know this sounds nonsensical. However, when you have a young woman that quietly sits next to her best friend each morning in class and then shows up on a random afternoon between classes or fires off an email or comes up for a lunch and unloads all of these thoughts and emotions that have been being processed, dissected, evaluated against a sense of justice and decency, one realizes that the quiet young woman wasn't zoning out or pretending to be polite. She was thinking constantly, deeply, and thoroughly to understand the world around her before she let the ideas out. Through my time spent with Alyssa, I know that she cares about the people around her and strives to be a positive force to improve each of their lives. Her contemplative leadership paired with her moral passion provides guidance for her peers. She's a reliable young person that sees what life is all about, getting through each day without making anyone else's life worse, and hopefully actually improving some as a bonus. Some would say that this is a low bar, but think if all of us could achieve that. That is why I'm proud to introduce Alyssa Tyler for induction to the Cuba Rushford chapter of the National Honor Society. Hi, I'm Joe Franzen, and I have the privilege to introduce Mason Grasso. Ha! Mason. An even keel. Understated, quiet humor. Thoughtful, caring human. My current CRCS ally to help me weather this pandemic. Last year in Global Issues, Mason was given the opportunity to design his own independent study with the guidance of it needing to be a community-based, interdisciplinary, and address something that you saw as unjust. Mason took on an investigation of the intersection of negative stereotypes, social class, and cultural images that go along with the town divide present in this school Cuba Rushford. He dove into the statistics on poverty, hunger, median income, home ownership, education level, disease, and death of Allegheny County as a whole, the towns of Cuba and Rushford. He compared them to the national rates. He tried to connect those numbers to the reality he saw around them every day at school. And on the ride home, he started to look at his classmates with more understanding and humanity. He dove down rabbit holes of numbers, facts, history, and realized that each hole led to 50 more, and continued jumping. Through this project, although he realized his paper did not begin to scratch the surface, he showed scholarship, citizenship, empathy, understanding, and the need for knowledge and leadership. He does this every day that I have known him in a quiet, humble, caring, and often sarcastic way. That is why I'm proud to present Mr. Grasso for induction to the Cuba Rushford chapter of the National Honor Society. Hello, my name is Joe Franzen, and I am here to present Kirsten Campbell. It is great when you see students get angry for the right reasons. I know that a student will remember a lesson if they experience an emotion during it. Laughing and smiling is great, but I will take a snarl, a stink eye, or a well-placed cuss word. Not to say Kirsten was dropping bombs, but I had the privilege of seeing her angry about the ideas of injustice, inequality, ignorance, loss, pain, about people she had never met or might be long dead. I had the privilege to watch her connect those past issues to the present and construct her understanding of the world just like a young fish, first understanding the water in which they swam their whole life, but never having recognized for what it really is. Over the past 3 years, I have seen Kirsten grow into a young person who cares about what it means to be a citizen, what it means to serve your community, and how to gain the knowledge and character to do those things with understanding and compassion. For all those reasons, I present Kirsten for induction to the Cuba Rushford chapter of the National Honor Society. Hi, my name is Joe Franzen, and I have the privilege today to introduce Jessica Deitch. So, I'm an adult, or at least I'm supposed to be. Sometimes I feel like I'm pretending. Luckily, I have people that help me keep up this charade. One of them is Jessica, whether she knew it or not. She might be looking bashful right now, but I am pretty sure that she has known this fact for the 3 years I have known her. She and her sister were my teacher maturity barometers, my dad joke thermometers, my "are students going to get this" Geiger counters, my "does this thing that I need to send to other people that may or may not be pretending to be adults" spectrometers. Either way, your words, facial expressions, emotions, and conversations helped me be a better teacher, adult, and mentor for others. Scholarship, citizenship, service, character. Whether through working with second graders in the mentoring program Braves, her work in global studies classes, time spent in student government, or just having the gumption to wave hello to an awkward, semi-adult teacher at BJ's when you could have hidden behind these ever so convenient masks. These 4 pillars of NHS are more obvious with each of those. What I really have to say is thank you for helping guide those around you to being better versions of themselves. I look forward to what your future holds and to what communities you take your maturity-making magic to. For that reason, I'd like to introduce Jessica for induction into the Cuba Rushford chapter of the National Honor Society. Hello, My name's Joe Franzen, and I have the privilege to introduce Logan Ungerman. Last year, at the end of the school year, when we were all doing virtual learning, I asked students to create resources that documented the beginning of the pandemic, while providing them a range of forms and tools with which to analyze the world around them. Most students talked about how they missed school, their friends, and all of the traditional high school rites of passage. Although those are important and most likely matter to Logan, each week his artifacts focused on many of the people impacted by the pandemic. The people that most of us weren't thinking about, like loggers, and dairy farmers, and road maintenance crews. He spoke about the key role these people had in society before the pandemic and how they became even more important as toilet paper ran out. Food insecurity spread, and safe roads were key in saving lives. In reflecting on his project, I realized that his choices reflected him. Logan is not flashy. He doesn't jump at the chance to be center stage. He is a reliable and hard worker. He looks to see who is working behind the scenes to make the world work. His care for those people shows empathy, character, and a patience to think about who might not be included that needs to be. As a teacher, I appreciate Logan as a solid person that stands by what is right. As a person, I appreciate Logan as a cheerleader for the people who make toilet paper. And either way, with more Logans, there is less, what's the word I'm looking for? Issues that need to be solved by the rest of us. For those reasons, that is why I'm introducing Logan Ungerman for introduction to the Cuba Rushford chapter of the National Honor Society.
Good afternoon. My name is Mrs. Williams, and I have the honor and privilege of inducting Austin Clement into the Cuba Rushford chapter of the National Honor Society. I first met Austin 13 years ago when I took my son to the first day at Miss Mary's house. In these years, I've come to know Austin on a very close level, and I'm honored that he chose me to give this speech for him. I've witnessed numerous occasions in the last decade where Austin has practiced and demonstrated the qualities of National Honor Society, but none more so than the area of responsibility and character. Austin has always shown both these qualities in his academics, sports, and in his everyday life. In 6th grade, he was that child that was the teacher's dream, always on class on time, always had his work done, ready to start class, participated, helped other kids, and was always kind of the go-to kid to pair someone with because he would be nice and include them. I could really go on and on about him. I believe he is probably a coach's dream too. While I haven't coached Austin, I've watched him in all of his sports. He goes out, listens to the coach, tries his best, and he doesn't complain to the coach or the ref. Austin has been responsible even outside of school. Hunter and I used to get a giggle out of Austin in the morning before school. We'd have bets on on what he would be frustrated with his brother for each morning, or what he would take care of because his brother was running late again. Austin was always making sure his brother was up, getting ready, his chores done, and ready for when we were there to pick him up. I miss our morning car rides to school so very much. While it was a short ride, there were so many great conversations and so many laughs to start my day. My fondest memory of Austin was when he was about 3 or 4. It was the first morning of his brother and my son Hunter's t-ball practice. Austin had come, had his lounge chair all set up with his blanket and breakfast, a Pop-Tart, thus the name Pop-Tart. He was pretty sleepy, bundled up, watching everything and nibbling on his breakfast. My husband asked him what was for breakfast, and he just got a big grin, held up his Pop-Tart, and said it was chocolate. He said, "My favorite." My husband said it was his favorite too. And from that Saturday practice on, Austin brought an extra Pop-Tart for my husband. Thus again, the nickname Pop-Tart. Austin's kindness has always been his shining light. When you say Austin's name, people just automatically smile. There's a saying that every act of kindness grows the spirit and strengthens the soul. This is how you make people feel, Pop-Tart. Continue this, and as Dr. Seuss says, you'll move mountains. On this note, I want you to know that I carry the highest respect for you, and I'm very proud of the man that you have become and know you will be. For all these reasons, I present Austin Clement for induction to the National Honor Society.
Good afternoon, folks. I'm Mr. Ellison, and today I have the privilege of introducing Miss Aliana Barnes for induction into the Cuba Rushford chapter of the National Honor Society. I was Allie's Spanish teacher for 3 consecutive years, and she strongly demonstrates all of the NHS qualities, but most notably, service. Allie served as an officer for the Spanish Club every year of her high school career. She was always the first student to offer help at the multiple events that we hosted. This service carried over into many facets of high school life. If I ever needed help with anything, I knew that I could speak with Allie, and she would be there. It's been tough not seeing her as much this year, but I take solace in knowing that she will be successful and will be a great asset to whichever community she chooses to make her own. I also can't forget to mention the fact that Allie was a dual language student. She successfully completed both the Spanish and the French tracks in high school. Pretty amazing if you ask me. Fantastic, fantastico, fantastique, all those other words. Allie is a great selection for our National Honor Society. And it is with these words that I proudly present Miss Aliana Barnes for induction. Hello. The next candidate that I have the privilege of introducing for induction is Mr. Braden Lavery. What I love about Braden is that when I hear his name, I can picture it written out in the most beautiful cursive handwriting that would put my great-grandmother to shame. Every single paper that he's ever turned in, written perfectly in cursive, and many kids don't know how to do that. I have been teaching Braden for 3 consecutive years now, and he strongly demonstrates all of the NHS qualities, especially leadership. Braden leads by example with enthusiasm and incredible hard work. His ability to motivate classmates and teammates and to get them moving and just hang in there a little bit longer is truly inspiring. We can all take a bit of comfort in knowing that there are students like Braden in this district to serve as a role model to our younger students. He communicates well and is always very respectful. I know that Braden will make a wonderful addition to our NHS. With that being said, it is my great honor to present Mr. Braden Lavery for induction. Hello again. Today, I am fortunate enough to have the privilege of introducing Miss Gabby Morong for induction into the National Honor Society. I was Gabby's Spanish teacher for 3 consecutive years, and she strongly demonstrates all of the NHS qualities, especially character. Gabby joined my Spanish class as an 8th grader, and you would never know that she was a year behind the other students scholastically. I want to focus on the fact that Gabby is a very tenacious young lady. It is always such a pleasure watching Gabby both advocate for the opportunities that she deserves and participate on an equal level with her older classmates. When it comes to her beliefs, if Gabby feels a certain way, she makes it very clear to those around her. She is not afraid to hold her ground when others may not agree, and I find that so admirable. The NHS should feel proud and honored to have a girl like Gabby standing up here with you. She will represent you well, especially as she moves forward with her endeavors with the National Guard. It is because of her continual acts of selflessness that it is my great honor to present Ms. Gabby Morong for induction. Good afternoon. The next student that I have the privilege of introducing for induction into the Cuba Rushford chapter of the National Honor Society is Miss Megan O'Keefe. I have been Megan's Spanish teacher for 3 consecutive years now, and she strongly demonstrates all of the NHS qualities, especially scholarship. This young lady has been working her tail off every single day of her high school career. If there's work to be done, Megan gets it done. She puts in the time and effort necessary, both inside and outside of school. And she consistently performs at an exceptional level. I'd like to speak a little bit about what it's like to have Megan in my classroom. Class never really officially begins until Megan has told her story. It might be a story about what happened last night at ski club, or how many likes her TikTok video received, or the ever famous, or infamous, story of how Lauren is wearing her shirt again. But until we hear the story, class never really officially begins. And you know what? I wouldn't trade that for the world. It's awesome. Megan, you really are most deserving of this honor. You are diligent, you're studious, and you take exceptional pride in the work that you do. Your scholastics come first on your priority list. And this great quality will ensure success as you pursue your future endeavors. I'm proud of you, Megan. Keep it up. It is a tremendous honor and privilege to present Mr. Noah Siegel for induction into the Cuba Rushford chapter of the National Honor Society. Without a doubt, Noah epitomizes the very best of our school, and his value to our community is unmatched. I have known Noah for 3 years, and I remember being so impressed on our first encounter. It was at the middle school STEAM night event, and he had built an amazing Lego robot contraption type thing, and he was able to answer questions about the project that he had built and have a conversation with me like an adult. Now, as Noah's Spanish teacher, I'm very familiar with the quality of his mind and his academic ability, not to mention his unmatched taste for 1990s hip-hop music. My numerous interactions with him have allowed him to demonstrate his sharp mind, his curiosity, his eagerness to learn, and his first-rate written and oral communication skills. It's such a joy to have a conversation with Noah, and his contributions to the classroom are always noteworthy. My colleagues and students alike who have had the pleasure of working with Noah would say the same thing. With all of these things being said, it is my great honor to present Mr. Noah Siegel for induction into the Cuba Rushford chapter of the National Honor Society. Hello again. The final candidate that I will be introducing for induction is Mr. John White, formerly known to me as Senor Juan Grande, King of Baseball. John has been one of my hardest working and most teachable students over the last 3 years. The NHS quality that I see the most in John is his character. He always comes into the room well prepared, extremely organized, and ready to learn, all while maintaining a positive attitude. He's kind of our quiet leader in the classroom. Never gives anyone a hard time, puts his head down, and works hard. Teachers appreciate students like that. John also manages to keep a healthy balance between his academics and his extracurricular activities. He's always doing what's right. John is another fantastic selection for the Cuba Rushford National Honor Society, and with these words, I proudly present him for induction.
Hello, my name is Mrs. Charlene Clausen, and I have the honor and privilege of introducing Caprice Spohr for induction into the Cuba Rushford chapter of the National Honor Society. My first impression of Caprice, way back when she was in 8th grade, was that she was a quiet, dedicated, and attentive student. But here's the thing about first impressions. They usually don't reveal all aspects of someone's character. And while I won't claim to know everything about Caprice, here's what I have come to discover about her over the past 4 years. While she is still a dedicated and attentive student, she is driven and pushes herself to be the best she can. Beneath that quiet exterior is a passion to learn and be successful. This is a trait that only a few of my students have possessed over all the years. It is Caprice's quiet drive that will take her far. For all these reasons and more, I present Caprice for induction.
Good afternoon. I am very proud to introduce a young lady for induction into the CRCS National Honor Society. This amazing, outstanding, hardworking, multifaceted young lady has been on the high honor roll for her entire academic career. She exemplifies all the characteristics and qualities that make her an asset to any program, including NHS: scholarship, character, service, and leadership. She also plays on the CRCS girls soccer, basketball, and softball teams. In addition, she has accumulated over 890 hours of community service. My word for Miss Lillian Forward is go-to. Lillian gives everything she does 110%, and when we need something done, she is the go-to person. She has especially shined in fisheries and wildlife, where her hard work and dedication has landed her in charge of the Deer Research Data Program. But of course, what impresses me most of all is what an accomplished young hunter and outdoors person she is. This young lady has been on national television for her remarkable outdoor skills, and I could not be more proud of Lillian for all that she has accomplished and will accomplish in the future. When I asked Lillian what she was most proud of at CRCS, she said that she was the most proud of her hard work and dedication to all of her classes, and that her grades have shown her successes. As a student and as a leader, with that in mind, it is now with great pride and pleasure that I introduce Ms. Lillian Forward for induction into the CRCS National Honor Society.
All right, it brings me great pleasure to have a chance to speak on behalf of Nate Cole on his induction into the National Honor Society. Nate is every bit deserving of this great honor and really embodies all four pillars of the National Honor Society. The first pillar, character, is defined as a force within an individual that distinguishes that person from others. As a coach, you judge a young man's character by their ability to handle adversity and adapt to the many different life's lessons that come with playing competitive sports. No matter what has been thrown at Nate over the past 2 seasons, he's overcome it and become better because of it. Nate was not always a starter or the best player on the team, but he showed up daily, worked hard, and set great examples for his younger teammates. I can admit there have even been times when he was not on the field, but should have been, and he never complained. He would just put his head down, work harder, and get better the next day. Not only does he show great character, but he is also a great team leader. He has a great sense of humor and can turn anyone's bad day around. Athletes like Nate make coaching fun and make it all worth it. When we need volunteers for community service, he's first in line. When I need help setting something up, he's the guy. And this year, when I needed someone to come off the bench and change the game for the better, he was that guy. I truly believe he will do big things in the future if he continues with his ways now, and I'm thrilled to have been lucky enough to help induct him into the National Honor Society. Congrats, Nate.
Hello, I'm Jason Stubb, English teacher at Cuba Rushford. I'm honored to be the one to induct Ella Jaffe into the National Honor Society today. Before I met Ella for the first time at JV softball tryouts, I just knew her as Abby's younger sister, a tallish girl who I would sometimes see elbowing boys on the basketball court at Chamberlain Park. At tryouts, I remember hoping that Ella would bring some of that park energy onto the field. I wasn't disappointed. As a player, Ella quickly proved her value at first base and was a leader on the team. She was the type of athlete coaches love to work with. Dedicated, hardworking, energetic, just a little sassy. Ella would play hard even when she was tired, only taking a break that one time she took a line drive to the forehead in practice. I felt bad, since I was the one who hit the ball. But we all eventually agreed that the whole thing was entirely Ella's fault, and that made me feel a whole lot better. The thing about players like Ella, though, is that their worth can't be measured simply through stats. I lost count of how many times she took on responsibilities without being asked, or how often she insisted on being given another ground ball if she missed one. All the time she made me and her teammates laugh. Being a coach gives you insight into the character of your players outside of the school setting, where many young people present the best versions of themselves to teachers. Out on the field, or on the bus, you see them as they really are. And I can honestly say that Ella made me proud on almost a daily basis by being the kind of person who demands respect shows kindness and compassion, and accepts responsibility. In the classroom, I've come to appreciate Ella as a student. I was disappointed when the circumstances of this year resulted in Ella choosing to attend classes fully online. And that disappointment is a testament to just how much her presence is valued and how much her absence is felt. Other teachers will know what I mean when I say that you can sometimes tell just from the look on a student's face that they're engaged. And for the few short weeks I was able to work with Ella in person, I often noticed how attentive she was in class and how she seemed to always be thinking. My colleagues would likely also share my frustration at not being able to interact more with students in person this year. Since I give my students the option to leave their cameras off on Zooms, it can sometimes be a bit uninspiring to look at rows of black squares on the screen, as if I'm teaching to names instead of people. Accordingly, it always makes my day when Ella turns her camera on for the briefest moment just to smile and wave and say hello, or when she posts a message in the chat asking me if I'd like to see her new puppy after class. Of course I want to see the puppy. I'd like to close with some inspiring words from one of our greatest thinkers. Pop culture icon and relationship expert Taylor Swift once said, "Never believe anyone who says you don't deserve what you want." She also said, "If you're horrible to me, I'm going to write a song about it, and you won't like it. That's how I operate." I consider Ella to be like T. Swift, a young woman who finds opportunities to lift up others around her, while at the same time not allowing anyone to tear her down. Because of her strong leadership qualities, admirable character, service to her team and her community, and her promise as a young scholar, I'm pleased to induct Ella Jaffe into the Cuba Rushford chapter of the National Honor Society. Congratulations, Ella. Greetings. I'm Jason Stupp, English teacher at CRCS. It is my pleasure to be able to induct Aiden Kellogg into the National Honor Society today. I got to know Aiden over the course of 2 years at CRCS and 2 seasons as her JV softball coach. I often argue that intangible qualities such as compassion, ethics, honesty, passion, and purpose are more valuable than a student's ability to achieve high grades. There's little to distinguish one top student from another when looking at GPA, and even service. So the students who impress me the most do so on a personal level. In fact, that's why I'd like to begin by describing Aiden as an athlete, because I think the perseverance and commitment she showed me over 2 seasons is a testament to her character. I'll be honest, Aiden doesn't exactly strike fear into the hearts of her opponents. However, what she lacks in size, she more than makes up for with grace and heart. In my first season as her coach, I depended on Aiden to be our catcher, even though she didn't have a lot of experience in the position. She caught all season long with no complaints, doing what we needed her to do. At the start of the second season as Aiden's coach, she let me know that she wanted to play second base. Most of my players would have been angry, disappointed, or even ready to quit if I had told them that they'd have to split the position with a younger player. But Aiden said she was just happy to be given a chance. No matter how hard I pushed her, how many hard grounders and line drives I hit her way in practice to try to exhaust her, Aiden never gave up and never gave in. When it was time to come out of games, she would take her place on the bench and cheer for her team. And if we needed someone to catch an inning or two, she would suit up and step in. When it mattered most, she demonstrated a strength of character that still impresses me to this day. It probably goes without saying that Aiden is well liked by both her peers and the adults in her life. She's responsible, caring, hardworking, helpful, and dedicated. In the classroom, her work was always done neatly and on time, and she asked questions whenever she needed feedback on an assignment, resulting in her always being toward the top of her class. If I needed someone to answer a question, I could always count on Aiden to participate. If I was having a bad day or just not feeling well, she would come through with a joke, a funny meme, or words of encouragement. I can think of no better way to describe Aiden than to say that she's just the type of person one likes to be around. When I consider the 4 pillars of NHS, character, service, leadership, and scholarship, I'm reminded of all the ways in which Aiden embodies these traits not just through her words, but more importantly, through her example. Whether she's volunteering at school, going to her little brother's baseball games, planning a nice surprise for a friend, or just being the kind of student who makes a classroom better through her presence, Aiden has earned her place in NHS simply by being herself. In closing, I'll always remember how Aiden would look over at me whenever she made a play in the field or got on base, just to see if I noticed and if I was proud of her. And of course, I was. So, Aiden, although you won't be able to walk past me and join the stage with the rest of the inductees this year, just know that I remain so proud of you and that I consider it a privilege to be able to induct you into the Cuba Rushford chapter of the National Honor Society. Congratulations, dude. Hello, I'm Jason Stupp, CRCS English teacher. I have the privilege today of inducting an incredibly young scholar, Mackenzie Kaiser, into the National Honor Society. I didn't know much about Kenzie before this year, but as a student, she quickly made an impression with her keen intellect, strong moral compass, and the quiet confidence and strength with which she carries herself. Students like Mackenzie often have an excellent reputation among faculty and staff, but it's not as common for students to be equally liked and admired by their peers. To make sure that my perception of her was accurate, I asked around about Mackenzie. Over and over, people were eager to sing her praises. Her teammates described her as loyal, supportive, athletic, and kind. They said she's the type of friend and teammate who's just there for you, no matter what. Mr. Franzen, who was one of our faculty members in charge of the Braves mentoring program that sent high school students to work with elementary kids, didn't hesitate to tell me that Mackenzie was one of the most mature, dedicated, and thoughtful students he'd met. It didn't take long before I was confident that not only was I right to consider Kenzie a remarkable young person, but that she had also made a similar impression on everyone she'd come across. What makes this even more impressive is that as a quiet, soft-spoken person, Mackenzie doesn't call attention to herself. Instead, it's the example of her dedication, her steady leadership, and her strength of character that make people notice her. An example of this is an email I received earlier this year. As teachers, we all have a group of students for whom we are an ally, and our role is to reach out to our list to offer support and guidance in a difficult year. In one message, I shared my own anxiety about having close family members with compromised immunity. I didn't necessarily expect any of my student allies to respond. I just wanted them to know that they weren't alone with their nervousness and their fear. However, Kenzie did reply, sharing her own worries about vulnerable family members, and ended by saying how much she appreciated her teachers and what they were going through this year. It's rare that students take the time to really empathize with their teachers. And this is a testament to Mackenzie's maturity and compassionate nature, because it means the world when they do. So, in closing, I'd like to say congratulations to a young woman who is sure to improve the lives of those around her, wherever the future may take her. Mackenzie, welcome to the Cuba Rushford chapter of the National Honor Society. Congratulations.
Good afternoon. My name is Carly Santangelo, and I have the honor and privilege of introducing Dayla Rhodes for the induction into the Cuba Rushford chapter of the National Honor Society. I am grateful for the opportunity to have known Dayla for the past 3 years as a student and active member of the Cuba Rushford FFA chapter. Dayla exemplifies character. She is bright, kind, thoughtful, and hardworking. She is a student that makes me look forward to coming to school every day. She is always willing to ask questions and to learn new things. She exemplifies service, working long hours in the school garden to donate produce and volunteering with us at the Cuba Cultural Center to distribute the food. Dayla exemplifies leadership, serving as a chapter officer her sophomore year, and always being willing to take an active role in planning events for the chapter. For all of these reasons, I present Dayla for induction.
Hi, I'm Mrs. Albert. I'm pleased to introduce Autumn Machelsky for induction into the CRCS chapter of the National Honor Society. I can't imagine a better candidate. Autumn is one of the hardest working students I know. Not only does she strive to do her very best with her schoolwork, but she balances that with being involved in a large variety of school activities, running her own small business, and participating in the demanding sports of competitive cheer and gymnastics. If you haven't seen her throw a tumbling pass, you're really missing out. She also shows true leadership qualities in and out of the classroom. Her peers have repeatedly elected her to student council and class officer positions. But what I see as her best quality is her heart for service, which is evident when she volunteers in youth sports, donates to the food pantry, or just helps a friend. Autumn embodies all of the characteristics necessary for membership in the National Honor Society. It is for all of these reasons that I present Autumn Machelsky for induction.
I proudly present the 2021 newly inducted members of the Cuba Rushford Central School chapter of the National Honor Society. The candidates will now recite the National Honor Society Pledge.
I pledge myself to uphold the high promise of the National Honor Society, to which I have been selected, striving in every way to make its ideals the ideals of my school and my life.
I pledge myself to uphold the high promise of the National Honor Society, to which I have been selected, striving in every way to make its ideals the ideals of my school and my life.
I pledge myself to uphold the high promise of the National Honor Society, to which I have been selected, striving in every way to make its ideals the ideals of my school and of my life.
I pledge myself to uphold the high promise of the National Honor Society, to which I have been selected, striving in every way to make its ideals the ideals of my school and my life.
I pledge myself to uphold the high promise of the National Honor Society, to which I have been selected, striving in every way to make its ideals the ideals of my school and my life.
I pledge myself to uphold the high promise of the National Honor Society, to which I have been selected, striving in every way to make its ideals the ideals of my school and my life.
I pledge myself to uphold the high promise of the National Honor Society, to which I have been selected, striving in every way to make its ideals the ideals of my school and my life.
I pledge myself to uphold the high promise of the National Honor Society, to which I have been selected, striving in every way to make its ideals the ideals of my school and my life.
I pledge myself to uphold the high promise of National Honor Society, to which I have been selected, striving in every way to make it the ideals of my school and my life.
I pledge myself to uphold the high promise of the National Honor Society, to which I have been selected, striving in every way to make its ideals the ideals of my school and my life.
I pledge myself to uphold the high promise of the National Honor Society, to which I have been selected, striving in every way to make its ideals the ideals of my school and my life.
I pledge myself to uphold the high promise of the National Honor Society, to which I have been selected, striving in every way to make its ideals the ideals of my school and my life.
I pledge myself to uphold the promise of National Honor Society, to which I have been selected, striving in every way to make its ideals and the ideals of my school and my life.
I pledge myself to uphold the high promise of National Honor Society, to which I have been selected, striving in every way to make its ideals the ideals of my school and my life.
I pledge myself to uphold the high promise of the National Honor Society, to which I have been selected, striving in every way to make its ideals the ideals of my school and my life.
I pledge myself to uphold the high promise of National Honor Society, to which I have been selected, striving in every way to make its ideals the ideals of my school and my life.
I pledge myself to uphold the high promise of National Honor Society, to which I have been selected, striving in every way to make its ideals the ideals of my school and my life.
I pledge myself to uphold the high promise of the National Honor Society, to which I have been selected, striving in every way to make its ideals the ideals of my school and my life.
I pledge myself to uphold the high promise of the National Honor Society, to which I have been selected, striving in every way to make its ideals the ideals of my school and my life.
I pledge myself to uphold the high promise of the National Honor Society, to which I have been selected, striving in every way to make its ideals the ideals of my school and life.
I pledge myself to uphold the high promise of the National Honor Society, to which I have been selected, striving in every way to make its ideals the ideals of my life and school.
I pledge myself to uphold the high promise of the National Honor Society, to which I have been selected, striving in every way to make its ideals the ideals of my school and my life.
Congratulations to you all. Jordan Beeman will now make a special presentation.
This year, the honorary inductee into the CRCS chapter of the National Honor Society is Ms. Deck. While all honorary members represent all of the pillars of NHS, Ms. Deck best represents two of them. Ms. Deck greets every student that comes through the doors of the guidance office with a smile, even through her mask, and a very enthusiastic hello. She keeps up great conversations while seniors fill out their incredibly boring paperwork. For these reasons, she greatly represents the pillar of character. The second pillar she best represents is service. Ms. Deck works very hard to make sure all students have what they need for school or even for their future. She never fails to remind you to sign up for your courses each semester either. For these reasons and more, it is an absolute honor to induct Ms. Deck into the CRCS chapter of the National Honor Society.